That is Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and honorary mention to Ohio, where 70% of likely illegal trafficked guns found in New York City come from.
What happens when a seasoned American veteran brings cold, hard history to a room full of politicians trying to strip away your constitutional rights? When AOC boldly labeled American gun culture an international embarrassment, Representative Clay Higgins didn't just push back. He systematically dismantled her entire narrative without using a single political talking point. In an explosive exchange that stopped a congressional hearing dead in its tracks, Higgins exposed the terrifying reality behind red flag laws, cornered a police commissioner on live television, and asked one profound question about America's past that the left simply couldn't answer. Stick around to witness the exact moment Higgins leaves his opponents utterly speechless, proving once and for all that the real problem isn't the guns, it's the culture.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Gramaglia, I'm looking at your presented statement, sir. Say you support confiscating guns from individuals determined to be a threat to themselves or others. Determined to be. So by this legislation my colleagues are putting forth, my understanding of the letter of that law, which I 1,000% oppose, as would our founding fathers, the letter of that law says an anonymous tip from a citizen. So if this was law, Commissioner, would you confiscate, would you go to your neighbor's home and confiscate his legally owned weapons, a man that was not under criminal investigation nor under arrest? Would you do it?
The red flag laws would...
That's a yes or no, brother. I got 5 minutes to make an hour-and-a-half statement here.
It's more than a yes or no answer.
We'll move on then. If you cannot say yes, you would confiscate weapons from an American citizen that was subject to this law that my colleagues intend to push through this Congress, then you said in your statement that you would confiscate those weapons if an American was determined to be, your quote, a threat to themselves or others. According to that law, determined to be is defined by an anonymous tip that an American citizen is a threat to themselves or others. You're a police commissioner, a thin blue line brother, sworn to uphold the Constitution, and you're saying you'd seize those weapons. I see that as a problem. I'm going to bring us back in time to World War II. America's population, 140 million. 15 million American men came home from World War II with deep scars and significant skills. They bore the invisible wounds of war. And there was weapons everywhere. We'll talk about mental challenge. My father was one of those men who was a Navy pilot in World War II. He came back from the war and built his family. I'm the seventh of his 8 children. I was born in 1961. We had guns everywhere. There was virtually no regulation. Any child in the 50s could buy a weapon from any seller if Daddy sent them with the money. We didn't have mass shootings. It wasn't until 1968 in America that serial numbers were even required on weapons sold in this country. You order weapons through the Sears catalog by the mail. In the 70s, I attended a high school, large rural school. Virtually every vehicle in the parking lot was a pickup truck, and almost every one had a rifle or a shotgun on the back glass and a pistol under the seat. And we didn't have school shootings. 1979, I began college. One of the jobs I had to work my way through college was as a carpenter. We restored historical buildings. We had to determine in the process of that work what was the original cuts of these homes, residential homes built 75, 85, 100 years ago. You could tell by the saw cut if it was a mechanical cut, an electric cut, or a hand cut. By such observations, we knew exactly how that house was originally built. And to my amazement as a young man, beginning college in Louisiana, working, to my amazement, you know what I discovered, Madam Chair? You know what these houses did not have that were built 100 years ago in cities in America? You know what they did not have, Commissioner? Locks. Locks. Now I ask you all, what happened to that country, man? A country where homes were built in cities with no locks. A country where guns were everywhere and virtually not regulated at all. Where millions of Americans, 14 million Americans came back. It's 11% of the population at the time after World War II with incredible skills of war and weapons of war, as you called them, everywhere. But we didn't have mass shootings. And here we sit today where an entire once proud Democratic Party is presenting unbelievably unconstitutional laws to press upon our nation, and we have a police commissioner that says he would go home to home and confiscate legally owned weapons if he got a tip. Madam Chair, I yield my speech, but I will not yield my opposition to these unconstitutional laws.
Let's cut through the political theater and examine the absolute masterclass in constitutional defense that Representative Clay Higgins just delivered on the national stage. While politicians like AOC stand before the cameras attempting to shame American heritage by calling our gun culture internationally embarrassing, she hypocritically points fingers at red states like Florida and Georgia for the lawless, violent disasters her own party's policies have engineered in blue cities. She tried to build a narrative of blame, entirely ignoring the fact that her own political allies built New York's crime crisis brick by brick. But Higgins refused to play her political games, stepping into that hearing armed not with focus group talking points, but with cold, hard, undeniable American history that left the left utterly speechless. The most chilling moment of the hearing came when Higgins bypassed the political grandstanding and went straight for the throat of the proposed red flag laws, exposing them for the constitutional nightmare they truly are. He locked eyes with Police Commissioner Gramaglia and forced him to confront the terrifying reality of the legislation. Under the letter of this law, a mere anonymous tip from a neighbor is all it takes for armed officers to raid a law-abiding American's home and confiscate their legally owned weapons. No criminal investigation, no arrest, no due process, just a tip. When Higgins demanded a simple yes or no on whether the commissioner, a thin blue line brother sworn to uphold the Constitution, would execute these raids, the official stumbled and dodged. That single exchange revealed a deeply alarming willingness to prioritize government overreach over the fundamental rights of American citizens. But Higgins didn't stop at exposing the legal overreach. He completely dismantled the left's core argument by holding up a mirror to America's past. He painted a vivid, undeniable picture of a post-World War II America where 15 million men returned home with significant military skills and the deep, invisible wounds of war. In the 1950s, a child could buy a weapon from any seller with a pocket full of cash from their father, and Americans could literally order rifles straight to their doorsteps through the Sears mail catalog. Even in the 1970s, Higgins recalled attending a large rural high school where virtually every pickup truck in the parking lot proudly displayed a rifle or shotgun in the back glass and a pistol under the seat. There was virtually no regulation. Serial numbers weren't even required until 1968, and weapons were everywhere. Yet mass school shootings simply did not exist. The ultimate mic drop moment, the one that stopped the entire hearing room cold, was Higgins's revelation from his days as a young carpenter in 1979. While restoring 100-year-old residential homes in urban areas, he made a staggering discovery. Those city homes were originally built completely without locks on the doors. Higgins looked right at the committee and demanded to know what happened to a heavily armed, entirely unregulated country that was so inherently safe, its citizens didn't even need to lock their front doors. The unspoken answer he delivered was uncompromising. The guns didn't change, but the culture and moral foundation of the country did. He flatly refused to yield an inch of his opposition to the Democratic Party's unbelievably unconstitutional laws, proving that you cannot shame a man who knows exactly what he stands for. Don't let the mainstream media sweep this explosive, undeniable truth under the rug. Hit that subscribe button right now to help us reach 100,000 truth seekers, and drop your thoughts on Higgins's legendary defense of the Second Amendment in the comments below.